Hello everybody! Today we will be presenting our senior project introduction video. We worked on GUI for Pluma, which is a plugin based microbiome analysis software. This was developed at Florida International University under our product owner Trevor Cickovski and our professor Masoud Sadjadi. My name is Cesia Bulnes and my team members are Rishab Vaidya and Bhavyta Chauhan. So right now, Rishab and I will be explaining to you what it is currently, and then Bhavyata and the rest of us will be explaining to you what we have done this semester. So Rishab, why don't you start us off telling us what Pluma is currently?
Thank you, Cecia. So, what Pluma is currently is a software for plugin-based microbiome analysis created by the Bioinformatics Research Group at FIU. The way the software works is you download plugins from the plugin pool online on their website, and you have to go into your command prompt or terminal to run the software. Now, this isn't user-friendly at all, and it's really hard for people who are out of computer science, and even for people who are in computer science, it's difficult because you would have to do a lot more extra work. So what we did was create a much more user-friendly interface for Pluma, and we'll talk about that more now.
Cool. So the problem definition. Bhavyata, can you take us through the problem?
Sure. So Pluma is basically right now it's a software that aids in assembling pipelines. And the BioOrg group is specifically using this to process biological data, but the way that Pluma is set up is a very generic pipeline assembling software, so it can be used for a lot of other things. But yeah, mostly Pluma is just to assemble a pipeline, and then you run it, and it does what you need it to do depending on the pipeline that you assembled. And so we created a user interface for it because, yeah, like we mentioned before, right now it just works through the terminal, and you need to know, like, you need to go to the GitHub page and get all the plugin files that you need. And just even, yeah, even as a programmer, it's just really tedious to do that. But specifically, Pluma is like especially used by biological researchers or just by like people with no coding background. So it's really tedious to use it right now, and it can just like scare people with no coding background away. So that's why we created a user interface so that everything's much easier to visualize too.
Cool. So now we will be going over each team member's roles. So I worked on displaying the plugin folders. This was used by using the README parser that Bhavyata worked on. I also took that and kind of read through each plugin folder to, read the input and output files for that, and then I used that to display it onto the current plugins that have been installed. I also worked on a web scraping of the BioOrg of the Pluma plugin pool. So basically, if you go currently into the BioOrg Pluma plugin, you will see a website with links of each plugin that will lead to the GitHub account for each one of them. Now, in order to download and install each plugin, you have to do git clone and know the directories of the plugin folder. And however, what I did is I basically took each link and made it automatically install for that plugins folder without the user doing any coding at all. So I wrote a bunch of scripts in the background that would work with that. And then, yeah, so then the plugins would be installed in the background. Rishab?
Yeah, so my part was mainly focused on the pipeline assembly area of the user interface. So, like I mentioned before, Pluma worked all through the terminal. So, when anyone who would have to assemble a pipeline, it would have to be done through the terminal. It was very tedious. So, our user interface easily allows you to drag and drop plugins from the plugin pool that Cecia mentioned. And that's where my part was the dragging and dropping into the pipeline assembly area, and the user is also able to remove any unnecessary, unwanted plugins and drag them to the trash can. So I added a trash can to the page so you can just drag the plugins and remove them. I was also responsible for saving all the information in the pipeline assembly area. So as soon as the user clicks save, all the boxes in the area are red, and the information is .txt file, which is sent to the Pluma software, which allows it to be able to run. This can run any type of file, if it's .py, .c, whatever. It's really compatible and versatile. And now Bhavyata can talk about her part.
So I implemented mainly, I was responsible for the upload, input and output file features. So the way that the pipeline works right now is that the user needs to only upload the input file for the first plugin and the output file for the last plugin. And so firstly, since there's an input and output file associated with each specific plugin, you can't upload an input file before adding a plugin, because every time you upload a file, there needs to be a check if it is actually compatible with the plugin that you're associating it with. So that's one thing. If you try to if you try to upload a file without adding a plugin, it's going to give you an alert to add a plugin first. And then secondly, after you add a plugin, then once you click on the input or output file button, it's going to open up a file browser window, and from where you can actually get like the files from your computer locally and upload them. So the next step is actually once the user like selects a file, there's going to be a check that's triggered based on the plugin that they selected. So for example, if the plugin that they selected only accepts .csv files, they can only upload .csv files. If they try to upload a .txt file, for example, it's gonna not like the upload is gonna fail, and it's gonna give them an error and say that only .csv files are allowed. So please try again. So once they try again and upload the correct file type, the file type is uploaded, and that file name along with its type is displayed under the input or output file button. So yeah, and I do that check using a README parser, which because every plugin has like in the folder has a README file that I use to extract the information about the input and output file types, and then I check that against the file that the user actually uploads. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, so for our user stories, we worked on a total of 32 user stories, and we will be going over these more in depth when in the next upcoming video. Thank you very much.